Am I the asshole for giving away a car I had gotten for my son because he was ungrateful about it? I have a somewhat troubled 18-year-old son whom I don't really know what's troubling him. By troubled, I mean that he sometimes skips class as he finds virtual learning hard, sometimes sneaks out at night to be with friends even though I've told him he can't do that at this time, puts up little fights when he has to do chores, wants the latest and greatest gadgets even though he knows we don't have much money, etc. I'm not sure what I or my husband did to make him this way, but I think he's just been hanging out with the wrong people at the wrong time, and have been looking for a therapist for him. Something that my son recently accomplished was passing his driver's test and getting his permit, and for that I felt like rewarding him. He was very vocal about wanting a Tesla Model 3, but I told him multiple times that we don't have the money for one and we would get him whatever we could afford. He always objects to this by saying that his friends are going to make fun of him. We're gonna get him something reliable, not expensive or stylish. A few days ago was his birthday, and we surprised him with a 2000 Subaru Outback. He was excited at first, but then when he saw the car, he immediately broke down crying, saying he wanted a Tesla Model 3 instead of this crap and how he was going to be made fun of by all his friends and that he can't drive a stick. I told him that it was what we could afford and it's very reliable, but he screamed about how he hates us and is going to run away, and went up to his room and slammed the door. Needless to say, I was a bit hurt at how he reacted, and now had a car on my hands that I didn't know what to do with. Then I remembered my saint of a nephew, who is 19 and has been wanting a car, any car for at least a year now, and his family didn't have much money. I messaged him about the car, and he was so grateful and thankful for us giving the car to him. He came over yesterday and expressed his gratitude, saying it was the best Christmas gift he ever had. Well, today's Christmas and everything was peaceful when opening gifts, but then my son went out to the driveway to take a look at the car, and he saw it was gone. He yelled at me asking where it was. I told him that I gave it away, to my nephew who's infinitely more grateful and thankful for what he gets. And that he didn't want it, so I gave it to someone who did. And that from now on, if he wants his own car, he can work for it himself and pay for it. He's an adult now, and if he wants to act like a clown, he'll be treated like one. He began yelling at us again about how he changed his mind and whatnot, but I said if he did indeed change his mind he would have told us earlier. He went up to his room again and refuses to eat lunch with us. Did I go overboard? Was what I did extreme? Edit. Thank you all so much for the kind words and awards. I'm unsure if I'll ever have the time to respond to everyone, so I'll do what I can. Some of you pointed out that my son is acting like a typical teenager but has trouble regulating his emotions. I forgot to mention that he's on the spectrum and his biological father, also my ex-husband, was often quite cold and emotionally abusive to him. I was unaware of this until we divorced when he was 14. He's not a bad kid, he just has a lot of troubles, and due to issues with insurance we have been unable to find stable help. It's very hit and miss. Hopefully we can get it resolved soon. He came out of his room to eat dinner with us and didn't speak much, but I can really tell that this experience is going to have a lasting impact, as sometimes he expresses regret over his actions. I see this as a major step and am proud of him for it. About me addressing my nephew as a saint. I shouldn't have said that. As I was writing the original post I was nearly out of patience, but realized that it makes me look like I'm biased. I'm sorry for that. My nephew is a good person who's gotten to know us quite well and has a lot of patience for my son, but I shouldn't have let my sentiment get in the way like that. Still, thank you so much for the kind words, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Not the arsehole, you don't run away at 18, you move out.
Also, lol, this is little kid shenanigans right here. He screamed about how he hates us and is going to run away, and went up to his room and slammed the door. Ask him where he's going to go and how he's going to fund himself.
He shot himself in the foot, as they say. You did not go overboard. Your behavior was not extreme. I think you did a good thing for two people, a young man who needs and appreciates having a car, and a young man who needs to relearn that actions have consequences. I admire you for recognizing your son's flaws and looking into help for him, and also for taking a firm yet fair stance in dealing with him.
He began yelling at us again about how he changed his mind. Not the asshole. Tell him he had his chance and that it's too late now. He acts like this cause he doesn't appreciate the value of money. Sit him down and offer to help him find a job. Break down how much everything costs: rent, car payments, car insurance, etc. Teach him budgeting so he can buy the Tesla 3 like he wants.
Your son's emotional dysregulation is concerning.
I'm going to go with, there's more to the story than we are being told. This kind of behavior just doesn't appear out of nowhere. What normally parented 18-year-old boy breaks down and cries over something like this?
No, you are not the asshole. In fact, you've been way too generous and nice with him despite his attitude about other things like chores or his educational responsibilities. The fact you gave his car away and told him he needs to be responsible and act like an adult should send a message that you are done with him being childish. From what it sounds like, he was coddled and had his bad behavior enabled for too long that he needs to see what the real world is like. P.S. Your son should pick better friends.
Info: he said he can't drive a stick, yet you gifted him a manual anyway? Not the asshole. He's 18, not 8, so he wouldn't be running away, he'd be moving out. Sounds like he needs a dose of reality.
Lol. Y'all move fast. Oh, he didn't jump up and down for joy. Who else needs a car and will come and get it in the next 30 minutes? He didn't tell you he changed his mind and you didn't tell him you were giving it away. Man, come on. Who thinks that's the thing that's going to happen so quickly? Lol. He's troubled, but you may have something to do with it.
Get that therapy, all of you. You're petty as hell for giving the car away because he complained. You by your own admission said that he's troubled, so instead of figuring out what's troubling him, you take the complaints he had and then give away the car. All the while knowing he's troubled. Make it make sense.
You probably did what a lot of parents do and not ramp up expectations and responsibility with age. So now he's 18 going on 14, and hangs out with a lot of friends that are similar in attitude. Now he's 18 and still has this ridiculously warped perspective on what is to be taken care of for him and really dumb expectations to go with it. Unfortunately, the only thing you can do now is start laying it on him and accelerate his advancement into adulthood. I'm not saying throw him out or expect him to suddenly pay $1,200 in rent, but expecting him to do certain things within certain time frames or move out is pretty fair.
Your son sounds extremely ungrateful, but it's a birthday gift. When you give it to him, it's his property. You can't just take it away and give it to someone else. You've made your relationship with your son 10 times worse. If you want to repair it, you have a hell of a job on your hands. Why would you get an 18-year-old a station wagon anyway? Does he have a family of 5 he needs to ferry around? I get not wanting to spend a lot of money, but that's a comedically bad choice even for the price. Get him a hatchback or something, Jesus. Not the asshole. You are a good parent and a great uncle.
Him towards you, you towards society. Do not get someone a manual car if they didn't learn to drive manual. It's insane that you guys don't have separate licenses for manual and automatic.
Did you set limits or did you let him run wild? 'Cause he needs to learn respect, but maybe it's too late since he can move out anytime. Not the asshole. He didn't want it, but when it's gone he wants it. Find it funny. He's gonna have to lose some things to learn respect, and when he has kids he might realize of how much of an ass he was.
Unpopular opinion. You are the asshole. Why would you get your son a stick shift if he doesn't know how to drive it? And also he sounds mildly rebellious at worst. Big whoop. He does sound a little whiny about the type of car, but I don't know. Teenager brains are selfish and stupid. I probably would have told him ahead of time, like, okay fine, I'll give it to my nephew then if you don't want it. That will quickly assess how grateful he is for the car when he begs you not to.
Not the asshole. Had to go back and check the age of your son. Those reactions aren't those of most 18-year-old people. He really should get a job and save up since he has been so unappreciative of the car you got him.
Not the asshole, but I do think it's a bit of an overstretch to say that whining about chores and sneaking out at night means your son is lost. That's a pretty typical experience for most teenagers. IDK. True that at 18 he sounds a little behind in that he should understand money better, and I think you made the right choice as far as the car goes, but IDK, I just don't think he's automatically lost just because he isn't like the golden child nephew you're comparing him to. Just my 2 cents.
Small everyone sucks here. Did you at least wait longer than the one night to see if he would change his mind? Blaming other kids for your own son's behavior is a good start at putting your head in the sand.
Info. Has your son gotten any sort of mental health counseling? I know he's 18 and legally an adult, but it sounds like he's in a really concerning mental state. Who TF expects their parents to buy them a Tesla? And I'd recommend starting some damage control now.
You are the asshole. You had given the car to him. It was no longer yours to give away. What you did amounts to theft. Or at least would in England and Wales. Either way, you should at least have discussed with him what you were going to do before giving it away. Yes, he also the asshole for the way he reacted, but you went nuclear overboard, especially considering you did it on Christmas. At 18, he should understand at least basics about money and budget. Not the asshole.
Not the asshole, and your son is too old to be behaving like this, so you're right about getting him a therapist. You've been nothing but generous. Sounds like your son was getting coddled a bit, and this may be the first time the consequences of his own selfish actions have smacked him so clearly across the face. Stand your ground. Your son needs to get a job and start managing his own money because he currently has no sense of financial responsibility. Now he needs to work his ass off and save so that he can comprehend how much work goes behind buying fancy new gadgets. Info: he says he can't drive a car with a stick. Is this because it's embarrassing or because he actually can't due to not learning JT?
NTA, I think this worked out quite well.
I have to ask, and I only ask this as I've had somewhat similar experiences in my lifetime, but is your son neurodivergent in any way? My sibling is autistic, and as an 18-year-old, socially he doesn't have the capacity of an 18-year-old. Which in turn also means he has problems with mood and reaction regulation. If the answer is no, then you are not the asshole. If the answer is yes, you're still not the asshole, but there may have been a more educational approach to the situation.
You are the asshole. Can you imagine what he's going through? His senior year is completely online, which as someone in online school, myself, is incredibly difficult to pay attention to. He's not allowed to spend time with his friends, and his parents can't sympathize with him at all. Yes, he was acting spoiled, but you got him an embarrassing car that he literally does not know how to drive. Did he deserve a Tesla? No. But after his initial reaction you went behind his back and gave away the only gift he had. This was a lesson to not trust his parents to actually try to help him feel better. He's going through something major and clearly isn't getting any sympathy at home.
Not the asshole. Maybe, just maybe this will be a wake-up call for your son. His childish antics cost him a car.
Sounds like your son needs to get a job and earn money for his Tesla Model 3. Give him 2 weeks to find a job.
Not the asshole. My very first car when I was 18 was a 1990 Ford Taurus that was given to me by my grandfather. That car was a piece of junk. But it was my piece of junk and I adored it. I didn't even expect to get a car at all. I was incredibly grateful, and even though the car was a piece of junk, I treasured it and drove it for years. I still miss that car to this day. Good on you for teaching your son a valuable lesson. I hope it sticks.
Bruh, a 2000 Subaru Outback is a dope car.
Info: did you put the title in son's name? If so, how did you change it without his permission? I ask because if the title is still his, he could claim it was stolen and get the car back.
Not the asshole, though I suspect if we knew more about your parenting in the years before this that led to him being this way, I might say everyone sucks here due to your bad parenting. Also info: why did you buy a manual transmission Outback? There are plenty of cars in the same price range that would have been more appropriate for him. Why didn't you just discuss the budget with him and let him pick out a used car?
I am on the fence here. There's a saying, possibly from Shakespeare, sharper than a serpent's tooth is an ungrateful child. This definitely fits the bill for that. Certainly your kid acted like a selfish brat and was immature, but perhaps you should have waited and not just gotten rid of it so quickly. Too late now, I guess, as you can't ask for it back. Your house is going to be very awkward and tense with a moody teenager for a long, long time.
Nah, sounds like he's being a typical teenager with the skipping class and sneaking out. His reaction to the car was poor and ungrateful. The way you handled it has the potential to be a good learning curve for him.
Everyone sucks here. You and your son have bigger problems than a fucking car. I couldn't imagine even asking my mom for a car, let alone scoffing at her actually buying me a car. I'd be so grateful. You're definitely not the asshole.
I'm not going to point fingers about who's right or wrong, but I do have a question. Has he ever gone through testing for ADD or ADHD? It sounds strange, but some of the things you're talking about sound very familiar. Even down to seeming ungrateful for the car. Sometimes those who are non-neurotypical can have emotional reactions that seem out of sync or too much to normies. Maybe try their
info. Does he have any diagnosed neurological problems or severe mental issues? This seems highly abnormal for someone his age. His reaction and behavior seems extreme. I'm an autistic 18 female and this sounds odd to me. There seems to be some sort of underlying issues, whether it's something within your household or something with him psychologically. Another thing to note is that if he doesn't know how to drive a manual and he just learned how to drive an automatic, that's a valid concern for him to have.
Not the asshole, definitely. In fact, it was the best lesson. Can we get some new material, please?
You might not have gone overboard, but I might have waited a bit more on giving it away.
I think there's something off with your son mentally. I'm glad you're getting him a therapist because this behavior is so extreme it sounds unreal. I think you made the right decision. You can only do so much.
Your teenager is being a normal teenager. I can say this because I am a 19-year teenager. It's obscure for him to want a Tesla, that's a little needy. But it was kinda your fault for getting him a manual car that he can't drive. He will never drive a stick car again, you know? He shouldn't have been so needy, but you shouldn't have bought that kinda car in the first place. You're definitely not the asshole for the car thing, but that whole first paragraph sounds like some pretty standard teenager shit to me.
Please find your son a therapist as soon as possible. This type of emotional dysregulation is concerning. The way that you said that you didn't raise him to be this way could be true, but it might also be due to a chemical problem in his brain. It really sounds like he needs some kind of help.
Not the asshole. You delivered an important lesson very effectively. YWBTA, if you caved to the attitude and gave him the car, he'd pay for not learning that lesson well throughout his life if you didn't do what you did. Once he starts working and paying for his own things, he will appreciate what you did. Expect this to take a while. Haha, well done.
Not the asshole. Your son is acting like an 8-year-old rather than an 18-year-old.